What are your thoughts about the idea of hormesis, getting like a little bit of bad, a little bit of poison being good for you? And maybe these plants, I don't know, maybe they kind of hurt your stomach. Maybe they are trying to kill you, but maybe some of this is good for us. So you mentioned the fiber kind of like not being broken down, but kind of feeding the gut. And our friend Joel Green talks quite a bit about you're not really feeding yourself, but you're feeding them, as he'll kind of say, like you're feeding your cells, you're feeding your gut microbiome and things like that. What do you think about any of that kind of conjecture?
Yeah, so absolutely great points. I'll answer the second question first. So as far as the gut microbiome goes, that's a very interesting topic. That's something but I think it's something we need a lot more information on. And I do talk to, there are some people out there, the microbiome experts, that are really big fans of carnivore diet, because you get a lot of very good diversity in your microbiome, and you seem to get the kinds of microbes that are associated with good health in one way or the other. One of the reasons, and I don't know his full arguments for this, but some of the arguments that people make is that your gut biome.
I'll just mention quickly, Joel has kind of pointed out that almost every single person that has been on a carnivore diet has to kind of like walk it back. And he talks about Paul Saladino and something. Joel's not inflammatory. Like he really wants to get a good message out to people, and he's not trying to like fight people. So he's not like doing dirty shit like that. But in general, that's his main conjecture against a carnivore diet, is that he doesn't think it should be done in like perpetuity. Okay. He thinks that plants have like a place in the human diet, and a big place.
Well, and that's fine, but I would argue that I've been doing this a lot longer than Paul Saladino has. Dr. Baker's been doing it a lot longer than Paul Saladino has. We've never had any of these problems. That lady, the Inuit lady, she's been doing this for 40 years. She actually got better at taking off the spices. All of her people historically, before, the introduction of Western diets, they ate meat, and then the closer you got to the Arctic Circle, the less plants were available anyway. The original sort of settlers in New England, I remember reading an account when I think I was in high school. The more southern people in sort of southern Canada, northern America, northeast America, they were like, look, these guys are living up basically in the snow all the time. I get it that they eat meat during that time, but for 3 months out of the year when things thaw, surely they could live off the land, but they don't. They just eat meat. So I think you can, obviously, and our ancestors during the ice ages were, right? There aren't many plants and fruit growing during ice ages, right? And so I think that, so I think that is definitely the case. You can absolutely subsist solely on meat in perpetuity. There are entire civilizations that have been doing that generationally, and you can't do that generation after generation after generation in good health unless you have everything you need. And you're not going to survive in the Arctic North or during an ice age unless you're in very good health. You either thrive or die in those conditions. And then another argument that people make with fiber is that sometimes that will get broken down slightly into, like butyrate, butyric acid, and that feeds your enterocytes, and that's good for your gut lining. But that's actually one of the major ketone bodies that you make when you're in ketosis. So you're going to have a lot of that available to you. You don't need to get it from your gut. You get it through your bloodstream as well. Butter gets its name from its high butyric acid content. That's how it gets its name. So there's plenty of that around. And so yes, you can get that from having some fiber, but there's plenty of other sources as well. As far as hormesis is concerned, it's possible. But what is the hormetic effect? I mean, alcohol gives us a hormetic effect in the sense that we build up a tolerance to alcohol, but does that provide a benefit anywhere else? But that is a hormetic effect where we're building up a tolerance and to
I would say probably, because is alcohol all negative?
I don't know. I think a lot of it is, but
some of it's probably positive.
And at very low doses, it probably could be. I mean, at very, very low doses, arsenic has actually been shown to be beneficial. So I definitely agree with the idea of hormesis to an extent. I don't think that necessarily every harmful chemical is hormetic. I don't know why it would be. I mean, there's just millions of these things out there. But maybe. But what are the doses? I mean, that's one thing that, when we talk to people that are plant-based, they say, oh, well, yes, there are these plant toxins, but there's this hormetic effect. Okay, I haven't actually seen anyone study that. I've actually seen say, hey, in spinach, these things cause harm, but in this dose, if you have 3 leaves under these conditions, you get this hormetic effect. So what doses, which chemicals are hormetic? At what level are they hormetic? Are they providing an actual overall benefit, or is it just you're getting a tolerance to these toxins just like alcohol, and that's the only thing you're getting? There's more than one toxin in these plants. There can be hundreds, if not thousands, in some of these things. And so you somehow got it right that the amount of salad that you're eating gives you an exact dose of hormetic effect from this one chemical in spinach and all the other things you're eating. But what about the other chemicals in there? Are they all hormetic? Are they all hormetic at that exact same dose? Do you even know what the dose is? These plants are not making these chemicals to benefit us. They're not making these chemicals to be hormetic. We are not in the Garden of Eden. So they are doing this to deter us, to poison us, because they don't want to be eaten. You can make an argument for fruit because the plant wants that seed moved. But it doesn't necessarily, so it wants something to eat it to move that seed, but it doesn't necessarily want us to eat it. A lot of these fruits and berries actually co-evolved with birds. So the birds would eat them and they'd pass these seeds around. In fact, there are a number of examples where those seeds will only germinate in the gut of certain birds. So like a cassowary bird, they just eat fruit. It's about 150 different fruits that they eat in the tropics. Mm-hmm. Every single one will kill you dead because the plant wants the cassowary bird to eat the fruit, not anything else, because those seeds will only germinate in the gut of a cassowary bird. So if the cassowary bird leaves an area, those plants die out, right? And so, or if you eat that fruit, that seed is not going to turn into a plant. So it needs to protect its baby, right? And so a lot of berries, a lot of fruit are actually still quite toxic. Even citrus, they have something called furanocoumarins, which are toxic. And this is why, you don't take grapefruit with certain medications, because there are these furanocoumarins, which our liver has to detox. And some of the liver enzymes that detoxify the furanocoumarins are what metabolize certain medications like statins and other heart drugs. And so there are certain medications that say don't eat grapefruit or drink grapefruit juice if you take this medication. That's why. All citrus have furanocoumarins. Some of the furanocoumarins will be light sensitive, so they will irreversibly bind to protein and DNA and cause permanent damage. And so people have actually gotten, it makes you very light sensitive, right? So
on that same topic, do you think that some of these things might be less, it might have less of a negative impact on us if it's in accordance to light, cold, heat, seasonal, because we shouldn't really necessarily, I guess shouldn't is a weird word, but we didn't used to have access to all these carbohydrate, to all this fruit, to all this stuff, thousands of years ago, 365, but there was times a year where we walk by a bush and it would have fucking berries on it and be like, oh, that looks delicious. And we'd taste it and probably tasted amazing to find stuff like that.
Well, and there are examples of that, like the Plains Indians who just ate buffalo, right? They'd chase a group of buffalo over a cliff, like when the season, where they come through seasonally, and they die, they preserve them, dry them, make pemmican, and that's what they eat throughout the year. And that's predominantly what they ate. They were high-fat carnivores, and they were thriving. They were very, very healthy, and a lot of them were actually quite tall. Like there was a meeting between Jefferson, then President Jefferson, and one of some of these Plains Indians, or maybe they were up by Minnesota. Anyway, so they came over, and so Jefferson was like 6'2", 6'3". And he describes these guys as giants. He said these people were giants. They described them as probably pushing 7 feet tall. They were just absolute monsters. So these were big, strong people, predominantly just ate meat, but they sometimes incorporated berries. And sometimes they would, for like ceremonies, like a wedding or some like special occasion, they would make pemmican with some berries mixed in. So that did happen. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I just point out that just because it's a fruit doesn't mean it's good for you, and because there are a lot of fruits that will just kill you. There's a lot of berries that are very toxic. That's a sort of a traditional tribal thing. It's like, don't eat the red berries. and that's why. So some of these things can be toxic. Also, I think that just the sugar content is harmful. When you're, like you're saying, seasonally, this only comes around every now and then.
Yeah, like right now in this area, strawberries aren't in season, but if you were to get a strawberry, it's like this big. It's like the size of this water bottle. And you're like, how did they make this thing? And like half the thing is like white, and then the rest of it's like bright red. Yeah,
so these things are like bioengineered. I mean, when the Plains Indians were eating this stuff, and our ancestors elsewhere were eating
a little tiny berry, get like a little sweetness on your teeth, and you'd probably be like, "Wow, that's amazing."
And the Inuit people say, "Oh, well, they had berries and things like that." Well, first of all, they're seasonal. Second of all, they're like these little lingonberries. They're like just sour as hell. Like it's not exactly sweet. And so a lot of these things they've been cultivated to be much, much more sweet. Like if you look at the historical ancestor of a banana, it's a very different plant, big old seeds, and mangoes as well. Those are just very tough, very fibrous, massive seed, and not much sugar there. But we've cultivated these things to be much, much more sweet. And so that's not, if we're talking strictly natural, what we were eating when we evolved, or humans, Homo sapiens, have been very, very genetically conserved for about the last 300,000 years. Obviously, there's some, differences. People with have access or had exposure to agriculture, from the agricultural revolution around 10,000 years ago, have made some adaptations to that sort of those toxins. I think we have built up a bit of an immunity to that. And then you have, say, like the Native Americans, or even Native Australians, where I'm living now, are much more sensitive to these things. So that lady who was Native American, she couldn't even deal with spices, right? That's how sensitive she is, because her people have only been exposed to this stuff in the last few hundred years, whereas like our ancestors would have been 10,000 years, so there's a difference there.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about Merrick Health, the premium telehealth clinic owned by Derek from More Plates, More Dates. Now, when some people think about Merrick Health, they think it's just another one of those testosterone companies or another one of those blood work companies. But Merrick Health is really cool because, you can get your blood work done, you can get hormone optimization, but you can also get nootropics. You can also get Viagra. You can get literally whatever you need from that clinic. And they make it very, very easy for you. That's why we love Merrick. So, Andrew, how can people learn about it?
Yes, Merrick Health is not just a one-trick pony, but if you did want to get your labs done, we highly recommend the Power Project panel. That's 28 different labs. That's also going to come with a client care coordinator that's going to give you a lab analysis, and they're going to work with you and help you optimize your body. Again, that's at merrickhealth.com/powerproject. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save $101 off that entire panel. Links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes.
Native Australians, Aboriginals, again, only the last few hundred years that they've been exposed to a Western diet. And this is actually what it used to be called. They used to call just the normal, like now we call them chronic diseases, chronic illnesses. They used to call them the diseases of the West, right? Because only these Western cultures would get these things. They go to Australia, they go to Native America, or go to North America, South America. They find these people just weren't getting these diseases. So they called them the diseases of the West. I remember hearing when I was a kid, just on like a news program, that when eating a Western diet, Native Americans were 4 times as likely to get obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and all the rest. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, well, doesn't that mean the food is causing the disease? Because if they don't eat the food, they don't get the disease. And we eat the food and we get the disease, we just get it at a lower rate. And I was like, okay, and what's a Western diet as compared to what they're eating? What's a non-Western diet? And I didn't know it at the time, but they were just eating meat, predominantly meat. Obviously, they could have some other things, but that's what they were eating. So I think that that's indicative of those plant toxins causing this toxicity, this exposure relationship. They're exposed to a toxin, their body's not able to deal with it, and they get these manifestations of ill health. The natural state of humanity is healthy, but right now, no one is healthy. I think something like 88% of Americans have at least one metabolic illness. 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. That is not the natural state. So something is happening in our environment, something is happening to us. That is not our genetic heritage. Our genetic heritage is to thrive and be healthy.
Power Project family, we appreciate you checking out this clip. Check out another one. Just go check out another one. Or comment down below and let us know what you liked about this one. But we love you guys, and we're going to keep bringing you the heat. So comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff, okay? Peace.